Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in honor of a bunch of champion training events and tournaments going live recently, with a fragment summon legendary that we have going on, I thought it would be a good opportunity to do an updated video, a 2022 version of where you should be farming in the campaign, Brutal versus Nightmare, where we go over some charted data and really have a deep dive discussion about how to min-max some of these points and the considerations to have in your head when you're trying to decide where you should be farming Brutal or Nightmare, and help you kind of understand that landscape. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, before we dive into some quick tips and tricks while you're leveling up champions during some of these fusions and fragment events going on, let's talk about the data that I charted here over the course of my runs, and we'll try to get an understanding of how Brutal and Nightmare compare to each other. Okay, so first of all, in most scenarios, they end up actually being different stages. So on Brutal, you'll see people grinding 12-3 most often. In Nightmare, you'll typically see people grinding 12-6 most often. And the reason for this is because it's just way easier to grind 12-6 in the Nightmare campaign. I use Hernig as my Nightmare campaign farmer, and he will do Brutal in like 18 to 24 seconds, depending on a little bit of RNG. He does Nightmare in over a minute. So it's almost triple the length of time that he does Nightmare 12-6 as opposed to Nightmare 12-3. 12-3 is just an easier place to farm. It's why, or I mean, sorry, 12-6 is just an easier place to farm. So that's one thing worth noting if you dive into Nightmare. Typically, try out 12-6 first because higher likelihood you'll be able to clear that efficiently. And then because of that, what we see is that the Brutal campaign can actually be a pretty good source of silver per energy and be superior to the silver per energy that the Nightmare campaign is going to produce. You can see here the 2418 versus the 2120. So that's me charting it, everything. I actually went through and charted how much silver I was getting based off of both the silver that I get at the end of the run as a guarantee and the artifact that I'm selling on top of that. So it does include everything encompassed in the sample size of hundreds of runs that I was doing here. Because in Brutal, at the end of the stage, you get like a reward of 12,000 silver or something, and then the average artifact you sell is like 6,000 or 7,000. Then in Nightmare, you get a reward of like 22,000 at the end of the stage, and the average thing you're going to sell is like 10 or 11,000. So, but that is because you're selling boots instead of shields. Plarium's algorithm really values resistance and defense. So you're not going to be farming something with a main stat of resistance typically when you're going after boots and shields, obviously. So the shield having the main stat of defense, having lots of defense, is going to sell for more than the boots are going to. And that's why the silver per energy ends up being a little bit better for Brutal. Now, if you're able to slam through 12-3 on Nightmare, then you could really mitigate some of that silver per energy bonus that Brutal is providing. And another big difference between the two is obviously the energy. Brutal taking 8 energy and 12-6 taking 16 energy on Nightmare. So when you're comparing these things, you have to keep that in mind, which is why I like to go over silver per energy and also XP per energy. You can see up here at the top, we have got Brutal coming in at almost 3,900, and then Nightmare coming in at almost 4,400. So we're definitely getting a little bit better XP per energy in Nightmare, but worth noting, the more XP you're getting per run, the more XP you're wasting every time you get overkill XP when a champion hits max level. What do I mean by this? You've got a champion that's level 29.7. You do a run on Nightmare campaign, a lot of the XP that you got is just wasted. You get nothing for it. It's actually a really cool mechanic that I love of Awakened Chaos Era, is all XP that is on top of a maxed out champion gets converted into XP jelly that you can then spend on other champions. It's not wasted into the abyss like it is in Raid, where it's just thrown away. So that's a really cool mechanic that I hope other gacha games will adapt, is adopt, sorry, is when you have XP wasted, go ahead and convert that to a resource that we can then put into other champions. I think that's pretty cool. But anyway, in Raid, it's wasted, and that's all you need to know for the context of this video. So something to keep in mind when it comes to the XP number being a little bit higher there. You're not actually getting all of that bonus. But there's other very key differences between Brutal and Nightmare. In Brutal, about 20% of the time, we're going to be getting mystery shards, whereas in the Nightmare campaign, we are not going to be getting mystery shards at all. But we do get a pretty significant bump in the 2-star champions that we're going to be acquiring in Nightmare compared to Brutal. Now, remember, the energy is going to be 2x in Nightmare, so you have to keep that in mind when you're comparing these things. Uncommons at 3.something%, the uncommons in Nightmare would need to be like 7 or 8% to actually be better, but it's up over 10% of us acquiring some of those 2-star champions. But in terms of per energy, we actually acquire more 3-star rare champions in Brutal campaign. Now, when would this be important? Let's say you're actually trying to farm books for a War Maiden or something, or they've done fusion events in the past for like Skull Vargal, where you had to farm a bunch of rare champions. It was Skullsworn. You had to farm 16 Skullsworns and fuse them into a Skull Vargal. So in that case, you would actually be better off per energy to grind for that fusion and grind for those War Maiden duplicates in the Brutal campaign as opposed to the Nightmare campaign. Even though the Nightmare campaign is a higher difficulty, you might think it would be better, but per energy ends up being better to do Brutal based on the charting that I have done here. And remember, like I said, a big component in this is the time investment. You have to pay attention to that. If you're doing Brutal in 6 or 7 seconds and you're doing Nightmare in 2 minutes, obviously it's going to make more sense in terms of how long you're playing Raid and how efficient you are with your time to go ahead and just do Brutal in 6 seconds instead of trying to force yourself into finishing the Nightmare campaign when it's taking you forever. So something to keep in mind there is also the time. Now, what does all of this boil down to meaning? I think if you are either low on silver or low on mystery shards, it makes perfect sense to do the Brutal campaign and don't feel bad like you're missing out if you're not able to do Nightmare or something. When would it make sense to do Nightmare campaign? I would say if you're very endgame and you've got a nice 20-30 second Nightmare campaign farmer and you are both rich on mystery shards and silver. If you've got like over 100 million silver, you've got over a few thousand mystery shards, then maybe it makes sense to go ahead and go after the little bit of bonus XP per energy that you can get in the Nightmare campaign. But I think it's perfectly viable for basically anybody to just go ahead and stick to Brutal. You're not really missing out on anything by doing so. So is there anything that I would change from Plarium's perspective to balance this out a little bit differently? I mean, I think it makes sense for the most part. It gives the early and mid game players an opportunity to be able to farm mostly as efficiently as the people that have been playing for 2 or 3 years. So that's always something good to keep in mind, and it makes sense from a design standpoint. I would maybe give the Nightmares campaign something small, like we just had Chaos Ore introduced to the game, which is a very strong resource. I would maybe give it like a 1% chance to drop a Chaos Ore in the Nightmare campaign or something. Not something super crazy, or whatever percent that ends up being balanced and not crazy stupid, and maybe 0.25%, whatever it ends up being, just that slight bump to provide a little bit of an incentive to grind the Nightmare campaign, where maybe you can get a random Chaos Ore here or there based off of your campaign grinding or something like that. I'm just off the top of my head throwing ideas out there, but maybe a little something special to Nightmare would be nice without overhauling how the XP universe is kind of working in Raid currently. And I do want to make sure and let you know before we dive into some of the quick tips and tricks to be efficient during tournaments and events for champion training, that I did chart this stuff on my account with the Raid card and the XP boost live. Obviously, the numbers here that I'm charting would change a little bit because, especially with the Raid card, we're getting both XP and silver, and then with the XP bonus banner, we're getting 100% more XP. So obviously those bonuses are very, very important to your account, and the numbers would change for your account if that was different in either one of those regards compared to what I was charting here by using my account. So now as we dive into some of the tips here, I want to talk about something cool about Nightmare if you've got those bonuses live on your account. If you've got the Raid card, if you've got the XP 100% live, you can actually one-shot 1-star champions by doing 12-6 Nightmares. So you'll see here that I've got these level 1 champions. I run them with Hermdig, and then boom, 1 run and we're done. We take that champion from level 1 to level 10, and now I can upgrade all of those to 2-star, getting a few bonus points and we get all the points from upgrading them to max level. Now, the points you see up there, that's not going to be accurate. We have to actually go under the events tab to look at what we got, because there's different things live, like clan vs clan and stuff going on. And you can see there, boom, we got a rare champion. So that was a super efficient run. Because when we pull up the champion training event, you can see how you get the points down here under the level upgrades. You can notice that you get the exact same thing for 1 stars and 2 stars for levels. So in that one run where I leveled up those 3 1 stars to level 10, that was 10 points per champ times 3. I got 30 points. And then when I upgrade them all to rank 2, I get a further 5 times 3 is 15. So what I got was 30 plus 15, 45 points on that one run by doing some 1 stars. And then on my account, you'll notice that I always have random 5 and 6 star champions that are sitting here at weird levels, like level 18, level 17, level 22, whatever. And that's from me trying to be efficient during tournaments and events for champion training, just kind of spending random XP brews here and there, because that can be an insane amount of XP. So before you take a champion from 5 star to 6 star, do not feed level 1 5-star champions, and that's a massive wasted opportunity for XP, and I'll show you what I mean. We've got a 5-star champion here that is a 5-star rare that we would be willing to feed into a champion we want to take to 6 stars, but just by spending 1 single brew, we can get all the way to level 9. Now, it's going to start to diminish. You're going to get diminishing returns the more brews you spend, but we're still getting to level 14 with the second one. And then we're getting to level 17, and we're barely off the cusp, so it might make sense to do 1 more, and there we go. We're at level 20. So just by spending 4 XP brews, I can get to level 20 on a 5-star champion. And then as you see here on the level upgrades, we're going to be getting 6 points per level up for that 5-star champion. So we took it to level 20. 20 times 6 is 120. Boom. I just got 120 points right there by doing that. You can get up to 1,000 points real fast. You go through and do that 9, 10 times, spend a few brews on some 5-star champions you got laying around, waiting to throw into 6-star champions you want to upgrade, and bang, you got 1,000 points right there. So something to keep in mind, don't waste your opportunity on those 4 and 5-star champions by feeding them at level 1. You want to take them for a spin on 1 or 2 campaign runs, or use 3 or 4 brews on them and really scoop up a bunch of points. It can add up real quick if you spend some time going through your account, doing a few of these little things. So alrighty, hopefully this helped give you a little bit of insight on where to spend some time grinding in the campaign and playing some of these champion training events and tournaments efficiently. I do always post this stuff on the resource tab, like I said, in the Discord server. It's linked in the bottom of every video, so you can go there and see any of these charts and resources that I have put out. We'll have that in the resources channel of the Raid Shadow Legends section of the Chofly Elite Discord. But anyway, that's going to do it for me on this one. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out so you don't ever miss out on resources and charting like this to play efficiently. Have a good rest of your day. Peace. Got excited and smashed my keyboard there. Let's try this again. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.